Welcome into the Sunday Journal. I'm your host, Matt Pittett. Thanks for being with us today. We get together each week. We talk about issues that are facing Cape Cod, the islands, and all of southeastern Massachusetts. Welcome into the Sunday Journal. There's an issue here that is just so unique to Cape Cod. I really love this topic. I've been covering it for many years now, a couple of decades probably, actually, and I just never get tired of it. And we're right at the beginning of what will most likely be another busy turtle stranding season here on Cape Cod, and we've brought in one of the experts who's really right on the front line of this issue on a yearly basis, Michael Sprague with the Wellfleet Bay Wildlife with the Wellfleet Audubon Sanctuary. And Michael is a cold-stunned sea turtle coordinator, so an expert in all things sea turtles. Michael, pleasure to meet you here. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Thanks for stopping by. So I'll kind of set the stage a little bit here. Your work with the Mass Audubon Wellfleet Bay Wildlife Sanctuary. Each year around this time, we're going to start to see a lot of turtles washing up on shore. In fact, as we sit here right now during our taping, people are hearing us on the weekend, but as we do our taping around early midweek, a turtle has just washed up. In fact, has been found actually out in Cape Cod Bay, cold stunned, right?
Correct, yeah. NOAA Fisheries was out doing a survey, and they found it out there.
And what's going to happen with that turtle? What's the procedure, basically?
So one of our staff members is meeting them at the dock. Normally, if it was found on a beach, the person would just move it above the high tide line, cover it with some seaweed. Then they would call our office number, which is 508-349-2615, and report it to us. And one of our staff members, generally in the area, because we usually have pretty good about knowing where they're going to come in, would actually go out onto the beach and pick it up. In this case, our staff member is going to meet the NOAA folks at the dock and just take it directly off the boat. And then once we have the turtle, we do a health assessment of it, make sure that there are no major gashes or wounds like that we would transmit that information up to the New England Aquarium for their rehab staff. And then hopefully within the next half hour or so, we'll have a volunteer drive that turtle from our facility up to Quincy.
So where will it be brought in? Provincetown somewhere? Or
they're meeting us in Wellfleet Harbor.
In Wellfleet Harbor, great.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's kind of just the appetizer, what we're going to talk about here. We wanted to kind of get the breaking news out to people here as they're listening to us with Michael Sprague, the cold-stunned sea turtle coordinator with the Mass Audubon, the Wellfleet Bay Wildlife Sanctuary. So, Michael, as I said, the Cape Cod is really worldwide the hot zone for this, right? This concept of this cold stunning at this time of year. Turtles basically don't make it around the hook of the Cape, if you will, and get caught in Cape Cod Bay. People can't see me at home. I'm kind of making my Cape Cod arm, like this, and they pretty much get caught inside the hook of Cape Cod. Tell me a little bit about, just take us through a little bit of the history of this, the background of it, and what's been going on over the past several years.
So historically, turtles have sort of always been coming up into the waters. Turtle bones have been found in the middens left behind by the Native Americans on Cape Cod. But more recently, since about the 70s was when Bob Prescott, our director, found his first turtle. But not basically probably since about the 90s, it's really been picking up, partly due to significant advancements down south in terms of the protection of nesting areas and the release of more hatchlings. But it's really ramped up the last few years. 2012 was the first year that I worked on the project, and that was our biggest year until last year, where we had 400 turtles. Then last year we had over 1,250, which is a big, significant increase.
I remember having covered this for the past couple of years. I remember the year that they hit 200.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to Bob Prescott about this, and Bob's, kind of the guru again when it comes to these issues. But I remember when that year they hit 200, everybody was like, oh, 200. I mean, how could we ever, imagine we'd have 200 turtles stranded? And last year you're saying like 1,250 turtles. Record year last year, right?
Yeah. Like I said, the biggest year we'd had was before that was 2012, and I think last year in a 6-day period we received 800 or so turtles. So we more than doubled the previous record in a 5 or 6 day period. You
bring up an interesting point, and I'm glad you did. I did not know, because a lot of people will ask me, well, geez, why are there so many turtles now? Why? 20 years ago, we didn't have turtles like this washing up. But what's interesting is you're saying, and I hadn't really thought this through, that down south, there's been a lot of conservation efforts when it comes to these turtles, the Kemp's Ridleys and the loggerheads as well, I would imagine. So what areas are we talking about? Florida, the Gulf Coast?
So for the Kemp's Ridleys, the majority of them come out of Rancho Nuevo, Mexico, which is actually an interesting site because the cartels own or control all the land around the beach, so the researchers there can't go out at night and check on anything. But then there's also been some jumpstart programs where they've been releasing turtles out of Texas, like South Padre Island, and those are starting to have bigger and bigger numbers, so they're starting to move north. The loggerheads are nesting mostly in Florida, as well as the green sea turtles are mostly Florida, but they will go up the coast to I think the farthest north loggerhead nest ever was in Delaware, but that was only a one-time thing. But the majority of them, it's going to be South Carolina, as farthest north as they mostly are going to make it. So
what will we see here? So those turtles kind of do their nesting thing down there in the winter, and then come here in the summer. And so which species are up here? Kemp's Ridleys, loggerheads, what else is up here?
Kemp's Ridleys, loggerheads, greens, leatherbacks make it up here, but they're sort of a different kind of animal. They don't cold stun in the way that the other hard-shelled turtles do. They're a little bit, they have sort of more of a countercurrent exchange system in their blood system, more like a tuna, so they can handle the colder waters. They can actually get up off Greenland in the summer. So those are the majority of the turtles. I think we've had one hawksbill that's made it up here, and then we'll get, I think last year we had 5 or 6 hybrids of 2 different species of turtles. So sometimes they interbreed, and there's sort of odd turtles, let's say.
So what will we see for the most part when it comes to stranded turtles over the next couple of months?
Mostly Kemp's Ridleys.
Mostly Kemp Ridleys.
Yep.
Now, in terms of the reason they're getting stuck here, it seems obvious when you think about it, but let's tell the listeners about it. So the turtles are kind of doing their thing throughout the summer, floating around here in the Cape and Cape Cod Bay, and for some reason they just can't realize, well, I've got to get around the hook here. They think they can keep going south, and they obviously run into some land, I guess.
Yeah. So for the Kemp's Ridleys, they're mostly the 2-year-olds that we're seeing. They did a study where they released the hatchlings with wire tags on them, and you'd use a magnet to detect it. And so in that course, we found that it took about 2 years for those turtles to reach us. And like one of the things we were mentioning earlier was, it's interesting, but they used to strand more on Long Island than they do up here now. So as the water temperatures have risen, they're making it farther north. And then if you look at the sea surface temperatures for the Gulf of Maine, this was one of the warmest summers we've ever had. So once the turtles make it this far north, they've been mostly floating in the seaweed patches, in the Sargasso seaweed. They make it up here, and they switch from their surface dwelling existence, hiding in the seaweed patches, and then they start diving and searching for crabs and shellfish and stuff like that on the seafloor, probably up in the Gulf of Maine, probably in Boston Harbor. No one's really seen many turtles in Boston Harbor, but now that's cleaned up, they're probably up there too. But then as the water starts to cool off, they start heading south. And Kemp's Ridleys, like embayments, they like the shallower, warmer waters, so Cape Cod Bay is a natural attractant for them. Then they reach our unique geography. Unless they find the canal, there's really no way out, because, as a lot of listeners probably noticed, the oceans cools off a lot faster than the bay does. So even if they start to swim out and they reach race point, they're going to hit that cold water, and they're going to think, this is not where I want to be, and turn around.
Back.
Exactly.
Yeah. So do you think that, based on what you're saying, because you saw a lot more up in the Gulf of Maine this year, could you see another record year, perhaps, if there are that many turtles that are floating around up there?
We think so. There were more live loggerhead sightings this summer and more Kemp's Ridleys sightings this summer than there have been any other year. So that's usually an indication that there's probably going to be a lot of strandings.
What's the status of these, the Kemp's Ridley, the greens, the loggerheads, in terms of their protection status?
So the Kemp's Ridley is the most endangered sea turtle in the world. The loggerheads and the greens, I believe, are both. I think they just changed the listing of the green, so I think it's threatened, but I believe the loggerheads are also threatened.
So they've all got some level of protection, basically. Yep. So that's why some people say, well, a lot of effort is put into this, but when it comes to the Kemp's Ridley, it's clearly threatened, so it is important for you folks to be out there and then trying to get these turtles back into the ocean at some point.
When we started, there were probably only about 1,000 adult Kemp's Ridleys in the world, and that was 30 years ago, so any improvement has been good.
Well, that seems like you had a great improvement, because if you had 1,200 strand or so,
exactly,
and you started with 1,000. So these Kemp's Ridleys, where are they? Are we basically saying their location on the earth, on the world, basically is from down south to here? Are they anywhere else on the globe?
Nope. Basically, once they're adults, they're probably just going to stay inside the Gulf of Mexico, and that's it.
They don't even come up in the summer. These
no, there's never been a repeat. Well, there's been one repeat cold stun that was stranded on Long Island, and then it stranded here the next year. But that was, I believe, in the 80s, and ever since then they've been releasing the turtles a lot farther down south, so that it reduces the risk. But I think we've had 1 or 2 adult loggerheads that have made it up here in the summer.
Michael Sprague is my guest today on this segment of the Sunday Journal. He's the cold stunned sea turtle coordinator with the Massachusetts Audubon's Wellfleet Bay Wildlife Sanctuary. And so you're gearing up, as we said right at the outset. Michael gave us kind of the breaking news, if you will, that as we began our interview today, during our taping this week, that Kemp's Ridley had been spotted cold stunned in Cape Cod Bay and was going to be brought up to the Quincy facility for New England Aquarium, or to Boston, to Quincy?
Quincy, yeah, they opened a new rehab center there a few years ago.
So take me through, if you would, what we can expect over the next couple of weeks. The season, when does it kind of formally come to an end, and is there kind of a hot time, if you will, when you're going to really start to see these popping up?
Yep. So normally it's the beginning of November. I think it's been the 3rd of November the last few years has been our first turtle. We're a little ahead of that now, obviously. But it's usually the hottest time is right around Thanksgiving. I think last year it tapered off. I think we were getting 50 turtles a day for the few days before Thanksgiving, and then Thanksgiving it tapered down to about 5 to 10. And then generally it's right around New Year's is when we stop getting live turtles. The last live turtle we picked up last year was a loggerhead out on Great Island, and that was on December 29th. And that turtle has been one of the slowest to recover. So the longer they're out there in the cold, the longer it's going to take them to get better. So
pretty much the absolute drop date is the end of December is when you're probably picking up turtles for the most part.
We'll continue
live turtles.
Yeah, we'll continue to get a few, but it really slows down at that point.
Now, last year when you had so many of them, I know that you had, obviously the aquarium facility was full. I think, did some go over to Buzzards Bay to the National Marine Life Center? Did a couple go over there?
So as I forget how many turtles that the Quincy facility is designed to hold at capacity, but as they start to fill up, they start farming turtles out to different facilities. The New England Aquarium is the only one who's permitted for doing the initial intake of them. But after that, I think there were 17 or 18 different aquariums throughout the country, from basically Pittsburgh all the way down to Texas.
I know that got a lot of attention last year when some of the turtles were literally taking rides, out to the Midwest almost, and and that was really indicative of how big a stranding season it had been, because the facilities around the Northeast had filled up, and these turtles were getting rides in box trucks, I guess, and all kinds of ways to get them to and from.
Yeah, it's part of the Coast Guard's mandate to do work with endangered species. So luckily, some of our state representatives were able to get the Coast Guard involved. They're flying training flights as it is, so instead of flying an empty cargo plane, they flew a plane full of turtles down. And also the general aviation community has been very helpful. I can't remember the gentleman's name at the moment, but there's a guy who organizes a lot of his pilot friends who all have their own private planes and fly turtles from wherever the aquarium wants to whatever facility is going to take them, all on their own dime.
I've been to a couple of the turtle releases. Why are they always in a banana box?
Yeah,
right.
Well, it's worked out that they're a rugged box. Yeah. A lot of the produce managers really like them. They actually kind of hoard them, and they're rugged. There's good ventilation to them, and a Kemp's Ridley just seems to fit really well. And Bob likes to say it's kind of a throwback to the original banana importers were in Wellfleet, so it's kind of a heritage thing for Bob too.
Sure. We're talking about the cold stunned turtle stranding season that's officially underway right here on Cape Cod. Michael Sprague, my guest from the Massachusetts Audubon Wellfleet's Bay Wildlife Sanctuary. This is going to sound really naive, I guess, on my part, Michael, but is there anything we can do to stop them from stranding? I mean, this is just Mother Nature, right? You don't really want human intervention with these turtles, right?
Yeah. The worst thing you can do is put them back in the water because it's too cold.
Right.
the only way I think that we could ever eventually do it is if we're figuring out where the turtles are hanging out in the water before they come ashore. So we're actually doing some work with the local high schoolers and a fella named Jim Manning down at Woods Hole, who works for NOAA. And we're putting drifters out there with GPSs on them to try and figure out how the currents are working, and then at some point see if that's where the drifters tend to hang out, if that's where the turtles are actually tending to being before they come to shore.
We have a couple moments left, Michael. What's your success rate? Is there a number maybe of turtles that are picked up alive? How are you guys doing? Do you kind of have an average number of success? So
for overall survival rate, it's probably around 60%. Mm-hmm. Once the turtle reaches the aquarium, it's closer to 98% survival rate. They're very good at what they do.
But that time between the pickup and the aquarium is obviously critical then.
Yeah. So it's I think a lot of the success we've had is due to a lot because of our volunteers and their dedication. We have some volunteers that are out there every single day and actually schedule their family gatherings around sea turtle patrols.
Sure. What drives you? What drives you to be involved with it to this level? What do you love about the turtles?
I've just always been fascinated with it. I remember being a kid out in Wellfleet Harbor and seeing my first leatherback and thinking it was a Volkswagen Bug. So it's just fascinating to me that they're here, because no one ever. It's always shocking to a passerby when you're coming off the beach with a turtle, because most people don't even realize that we get sea turtles here.
Right. For more information, Michael, can they go to the Wellfleet Bay Wildlife Sanctuary website? What's a good website to get some more info if they want to learn more about this?
So if you go to the Mass Audubon's website and you click on Wellfleet Bay, there's a tab for sea turtles that'll have more information on the project, some more just general more information about it, and then if that doesn't satisfy you, you can always give us a call. We might not be able to answer you if we're busy with turtles, but we always try. Are
you going to be back out on the beaches the next couple of weeks now yourself out there?
Yep, probably.
All right. Well, Michael, it's a pleasure to meet you in person. I know we've spoken on the phone before. We'll let you get back to your work, and I'm sure we'll be talking to you throughout the turtle stranding season. Michael Sprague is the Cold Stunned Sea Turtle Coordinator with the Mass Audubon Society's Wellfleet Bay Wildlife Sanctuary. You're doing some great work out there, you and your volunteers as well, Michael. So thanks so much for stopping by today. We appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
And thanks for being with us today on this segment of the Sunday Journal. I'm your host, Matt Pitta.